Hi everyone. Okay, so if I haven't mentioned before, I foster cats for the local rescue in our area and dogs, as it may be. And recently I took in this is my second pregnant mother, who I'm fostering right now. Her name is Cornelia. Um, and I actually had to help the rescue out a little bit with the topic of cat food. So I figured I might as well put a video out there so that I'm sure other people have the same questions or are curious to know why their veterinarians or veterinary technicians or veterinary nurses, depending on where you live, um, prefer different kinds of cat food and why they suggest it for your cat. Now, one of the most important things in your cat's diet as far as food goes is protein. Your cat needs a lot of protein, much more than a dog, and that should always be the first thing you look at when you look at a cat food. Now, you can get really low-end proteins and higher-end proteins, which is most of the why the price range differs. High-end proteins are what you're going to want to strive for because they are the meats and not the byproducts. A lot of the cat foods you see in grocery stores, I'll top this up a little. A lot of the cat foods you see in grocery stores contain the lower quality cat proteins uh, because they are a less specialized kind of food. They can be sold in a grocery store. Now, another reason why they're sold there is because of the convenience. It's very cheap in comparison to other foods you can buy. So that's, to me, the first thing you should be looking at. Now, there are different protein requirements for different breeds of cats. In particular, if you own a Sphinx cat, which is a hairless cat, or any mix of that, so a Munchkin, no, not a Munchkin, a Bambino is a mix between a Munchkin and a Sphinx. You can get Sphinx, Devon Rex crosses, anything really with Sphinx in it. I would suggest feeding a high protein diet because they are very active and they have a very high metabolism because of the lack of fur. They need to keep a higher body temperature. You're also going to want to look for higher proteins for kittens or animals that might be sick or underweight, pregnant, stuff like that. I always suggest, like I said, the highest protein you can find. I'll take some of the work out of for you. At the moment, the highest protein I've ever found in a cat food was for natural variety, nature's variety. The food's called Instinct, and it is quite expensive, but there is one um, flavor, for lack of a better term, that has 50% protein. So if you have kittens that are on the way and you have a pregnant mother, that's a great food to use because you're going to need more protein for that mother and for the kittens once they start being weaned. It's also great for cats who are underweight or are sick because they're going to need more nutritional value in their food so that they can get better. So protein is something that you're going to want to look for a high quality protein. Now, a quality of food is always determined by the ingredients that are in it. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, my IMS food or my pedigree or whatever food you want to list from Walmart or any other grocery store has, all these added vitamins and minerals. And there's one ginormous flaw that I want to point out to everybody with that way of thinking, and that is, why do they have to add it if it's not in the ingredients? It shouldn't have to be added because it should already be in the ingredients. Now, there are things that have to be added to cat food, like taurine and other things, but a lot of the nutrients should already be present in your cat food without the companies having to add them to the food afterwards. So when you look at cat food, or any kind of pet food really, or actually any kind of food, the ingredients are always listed with the heaviest ingredient first down to the lightest ingredient. So you can assume that the ingredient at the top of the list, or the ingredients at the top of the list, are what makes up the bulk of your pet food. Now, most pet food, including cat food, is filled with a lot of corn and other grains. Corn is not digestible by a cat or a dog. They do not have the enzyme in their body to digest the corn. So what happens is it's really just a filler. So it would be like, let's say, it would be like eating a milkshake. or like a Slim Fast shake every day for every meal. Yes, it does have nutrients in it, but the milk that you add to the shake is really the only thing that's like you might as well just be eating the powder, right? The only reason why you put it in milk is so that it gets it some sustenance. It's the same thing with cat food. Sure, there's chicken in it or beef or what have you, but the most of the reason why the corn's in there is so they can make those little nuggets so that you're not feeding your cat a powder, right? So keep that in mind when you're looking at a cat food. I always suggest, very specifically for cats, to try and aim for a grain-free food for your cats. The grains that are added to the food means that you'll have less protein or less of the higher end proteins for your cat. So it's actually better for their health to have no grains in their diet at all. There are lots of grain-free foods out there, and there are also foods that have grains that are the higher quality grains. Now, I don't suggest those ones because it takes away from the total protein values and the entire chemistry of the food. But if you can find a higher quality grain like what is it that oats? There we go. Some companies use steam rolled oats instead of corn, which is a much better supplement into the diet than corn is. Although it's still not the greatest, it's still not good to have it in there at all, but it's much better. Another thing that you're going to want to look for is, aside from the corn content, is actually what is in the food. Now, I remember seeing a video once online about a woman who had gone over some products that she really liked for her cat, and what bothered me the most was that the food that she reviewed, which was an Iams brand of cat food, only really contained two ingredients. Two. There was chicken and there was corn, and that's it. Everything else was an additive of some form or another to give the food all of the nutrition that it needs. Now, to me, why the heck would you feed your cat something as expensive as Iams when you can go to the store and get the same bag, like a bag for the same price or very close to it, and all of the ingredients are natural? You're going to want to look for food that has very low amounts of additives, or at least justifiable additives, that they're not packed full of omega-3s. Like, yes, you want omega-3s in your diet, but you don't want them to be added to the diet afterwards. You want there to be fish in the diet so that there's omega-3s in the diet. You want there to be actual protein, like meat, instead of them using byproduct meal and then supplementing the rest. So make sure you read the ingredients on the bag. Don't just assume that because it's a nice high price that the food is the best for your cat. Now, another topic that I hear a lot of that I think people get a lot of misconception about is veterinary exclusive cat foods and dog foods, as it may be. Now, my biggest problem with these is that people always assume that veterinary exclusive diets are the best for their pet, period. And that honestly truly is not the case. A lot of people think that because these diets have been, there's been a lot of research done on them and, et cetera, that they're automatically the best food for your dog. And that's, like I said, really not the case. Now, although this wasn't a veterinary exclusive diet who did this particular commercial, but in my nutrition class we watched a commercial for pedigree dog food, and it said that animals that were fed pedigree, on average, lived 2 years longer than those who were not. Or, anyway, that was the bulk of what they said. So after we watched the video, our nutrition teachers asked us what we saw wrong with the video, and somebody in the class noticed that in very small print along the bottom of the video, it said, compared to dogs fed pedigree free range. So what that means is, they didn't really test to see if dogs that were fed pedigree dog food lived longer. What they did was they tested dogs who were fed pedigree as the pedigree. There's a food chart. Sorry, it's not coming out. There's a food chart on every bag of dog food that suggests what rations you should be feeding your dog. So what essentially this commercial said was, if you feed the rations that we suggest for your dog on the pedigree bag, your dog would last on average 2 years longer than if you just dumped the whole bag on the floor and let him eat it whenever he wanted to. Well, obviously he's going to live longer because he's not overweight. Now, it's the same kind of idea with veterinary exclusive diets. Just because a veterinarian has it at their store and that there's been lots of research done doesn't mean that necessarily it's going to be the best food for your dog. There are a lot of diets there that are simply, puppy food, adult maintenance. There's even a food for senior dogs or dogs or cats, I should say, that should lose weight. There's I have a whole big beef about that one. There's a weight management and there's a reducing diet. Now, if your cat has a very specific veterinary diagnosed need in their food, then yes, don't stop feeding your cat urinary SO. Don't stop feeding your dog, a reducing diet if your veterinarian thinks that your dog should be losing weight and it needs help by putting your dog or cat on a food that will help it to lose weight. Dental diets. They have diets for cats with hypothyroidism. There's diets for dogs with diabetes. There is a whole range of veterinary exclusive diets that are very specific to the needs of very ill cats and dogs. If your dog or cat is on one of these diets, don't change anything. For the love of your cat, do not change it. But do not automatically assume that a veterinary exclusive diet is the best for your cat, because I bet you dollars to donuts if you turn that bag over, somewhere on that list there will be corn. And to me, why would you buy a $75 bag of cat food from the veterinary office when you can go to a reputable pet store and buy a bag of cat food such as Acana or Taste of the Wild, Go, Now, there's a whole line of them that are grain-free and ultimately better for your cat. So I guess what I'm trying to get across here is that please read the ingredients on your pet food label. It will tell you a lot of the quality of the food itself. Just because it's got a high price tag doesn't mean that it's the best for your cat. If you have any questions about cat food or dog food or what have you, please send me a message, and I'll try to do a video as best as I can.